It's 1945. The world we know is on the edge of collapse. But imagine for a moment that Germany didn't lose. What if Nazi Germany had actually won World War II? How would the world map look today? Would freedom, technology, and even daily life exist the same way? In this alternate timeline, the Allied invasion of Europe fails. Hitler's empire stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains. The United States stands alone, isolated, watching from across the sea. This is the story of a world that might have been. A world shaped not by victory, but by conquest. June 6, 1944, the day that changed everything. In our history, the Allied invasion of Normandy was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. But in this alternate timeline, the outcome is very different. Storms sweep across the English Channel. Waves rise higher than expected, winds tear through the skies, and Allied landing craft drift off course. Instead of overwhelming the German defenses, the invasion turns into chaos. Thousands of soldiers never make it to the beaches. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, regains control of the skies, destroying Allied ships and cutting off reinforcements. By the second day, Operation Overlord has failed. The beaches of Normandy are littered with wreckage, and the Allies are forced to retreat back across the Channel. The shock ripples through the world. In London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill faces mounting pressure. British morale collapses, and whispers of surrender spread through Parliament. By early 1945, Britain signs an armistice, ending its fight against the Axis powers. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Soviets, stretched thin and under constant assault, suffer catastrophic losses at Stalingrad and beyond. With the Western Allies out of the war, Germany moves all its strength eastward. Moscow falls. The Red Army collapses. By 1946, Europe is unified under one flag. The Reich stands victorious, an empire stretching from the Atlantic coast to the Ural Mountains. The turning point of history has passed, and the world will never be the same again. With the Allies defeated and the Red Army crushed, Germany now stands unchallenged. Europe is remade, not through diplomacy, but through domination. From the ruins of Paris to the streets of Warsaw, the new rulers carve their empire, an empire built on control, fear, and ruthless efficiency. France becomes a client state under German supervision. Britain, stripped of its colonies, withdraws into isolation, its once mighty navy reduced to coastal patrols. Italy claims the Mediterranean as its sphere, while the Balkans are reorganized into a patchwork of compliant protectorates. Berlin emerges as the beating heart of the New World, a city rebuilt in marble and steel. Massive highways link every corner of the continent to the capital, carrying not trade, but obedience. German becomes the administrative language. Schools teach loyalty to the Reich. Even time itself is standardized according to Berlin's clock. Industry thrives, but freedom vanishes. Propaganda floods every home, broadcasting the triumph of order over chaos. Art, literature, and science exist only to serve the state. A new generation grows up knowing no other world, a Europe united not by hope, but by submission. By the late 1940s, the continent once called the cradle of democracy is now the fortress of totalitarian power. The Thousand-Year Reich has become reality. And as the rest of the world watches in silence, the question remains, how long can such an empire endure? With the fall of Moscow, the last flame of Soviet resistance is extinguished. In this alternate world, the Red Army has been shattered. The once mighty Soviet Union ceases to exist. Its vast territories are divided among German administrators, each ruling over millions of displaced people. Ukraine becomes the breadbasket of the Reich, its fields feeding Europe's war machine. Belarus and the Baltic states are absorbed into the empire, their cities renamed, their cultures erased. Beyond the Urals, the remnants of the Soviet government flee east, clinging to survival in the frozen wastelands of Siberia. But even under the Reich's iron grip, rebellion smolders. Hidden networks of partisans, former soldiers, villagers, and escaped prisoners form an underground resistance. They sabotage railways, assassinate local commanders, and spread whispers of freedom. To crush dissent, the Reich launches its most ambitious project, the Eastern Colonization Plan. Millions of German settlers are moved eastward to replace the local population. New cities rise, built with forced labor and ruled by fear. By the early 1950s, Europe's map has transformed beyond recognition. The Reich stretches from the Atlantic to the edge of Asia. But beneath this vast empire, cracks are forming. The resistance grows stronger, and whispers echo through the ruins of Moscow. History never truly ends. What began as conquest now turns into occupation, and the seeds of rebellion begin to take root. Across the Atlantic, a distant power watches the world it once tried to save slip away. In this alternate timeline, after the collapse of Britain and the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States retreats into itself. Public opinion turns sharply against foreign wars. No more European blood, newspapers cry. The once united allies dissolve into memory. Washington enforces a new policy called Fortress America, a promise to defend the homeland, not the world. The army demobilizes. Factories that once built tanks now produce cars and radios. The war economy cools, and the public celebrates peace. But peace soon brings paranoia. Reports of German submarines patrolling the Atlantic spread across the coasts. Spy fever grips the nation. Every shadow seems foreign. Across the ocean, Berlin broadcasts propaganda in English, promising order through strength. By the early 1950s, a new kind of Cold War begins. Instead of facing the Soviet Union, America faces a victorious Reich. German rockets pierce the upper atmosphere years before NASA ever forms. A global arms race ignites. The race for the skies, the race for the atom, the race for survival. America's leaders know that isolation cannot last forever. As the Reich extends its influence into South America and the Atlantic, the United States stands alone, surrounded by enemies and haunted by what might have been. In this world, the land of freedom becomes an island of fear, a superpower in exile, waiting for history's next move. While Germany reshapes Europe, another empire rises in the East. In this alternate world, Japan stands unopposed. With America withdrawn and Britain defeated, the Pacific becomes a Japanese lake. By the late 1940s, the empire of the rising sun stretches from India's shores to the islands of New Zealand. China is fully occupied, divided into military zones. Southeast Asia, rich in oil, rice, and rubber, feeds Japan's war machine. The Philippines, Indonesia, and Australia fall one by one. Tokyo declares the birth of the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, a vast union promised as liberation, but enforced by fear. Japanese engineers build high-speed rail lines from Beijing to Singapore. Factories hum day and night, producing weapons for an empire without rivals. Propaganda films flood the theaters, praising unity under the emperor. Yet behind the triumph lies exhaustion, food shortages, black markets, and quiet defiance in every occupied city. By the 1950s, tension brews between Tokyo and Berlin. Two victors of the same war now compete for the same world. Trade routes overlap, spies whisper in embassies, and both empires race to master nuclear power. The once allied Axis now stands divided by ambition. And as the sun rises over Tokyo and sets over Berlin, humanity finds itself trapped between two empires, each claiming destiny, each believing it alone should rule the earth. By the 1950s, the war is long over, but peace has a price. Across Europe, life under the Reich settles into a cold rhythm of order and fear. Cities once filled with music and laughter now echo with marching boots and the hum of surveillance machines. Every street bears the mark of authority. Posters of loyalty, banners of victory, and cameras hidden in the lamplight. Children attend state schools, where history begins in 1939 and ends in triumph. They pledge allegiance each morning to the empire that saved civilization. Art serves propaganda. Science serves the military. Books that question the regime vanish from shelves, their authors erased from memory. Factories run day and night. The economy thrives on production, not freedom. Citizens are promised safety and stability, but only if they obey. Every conversation feels rehearsed, every friendship monitored. In private, whispers of rebellion remain. Families gather around radios late at night, tuning to forbidden foreign broadcasts that speak of liberty and resistance. Even in a world ruled by fear, the human spirit refuses to die. Technology advances quickly. Rockets, jet aircraft, nuclear research, all driven by the empire's obsession with control. The world grows modern, but not humane. From Paris to Prague, from Oslo to Athens, millions live beneath a single banner. The Thousand-Year Reich has achieved its dream: total unity and total silence. No empire lasts forever, not even one built on fear. By the 1980s, the cracks in the Reich begin to show. After 4 decades of control, the machinery of domination starts to rust. The endless wars of occupation drain resources. The conquered nations, once silent, begin to whisper again. Underground networks spread across Europe, secret unions of workers, students, and soldiers. They communicate through stolen radios, graffiti, and coded pamphlets. Small revolts spark in Warsaw, Prague, and Kyiv, sparks that soon become flames. Inside the empire, the illusion of unity begins to crumble. Generals fight for power, and corruption infects every level of government. Factories slow, food shortages spread, and faith in the new order collapses. Technology, once the Reich's greatest weapon, becomes its downfall. Televised images of riots and executions leak to the outside world, exposing the truth. The same systems built to control the people now broadcast their defiance. By 1990, rebellion sweeps across the continent. Mass protests flood Berlin. The empire's armies, tired and divided, refuse to fire on their own citizens. The eagle that once symbolized strength is torn down from every flagpole. The Thousand-Year Reich dies not in fire, but in silence. And as its monuments crumble, the world awakens from a nightmare that lasted half a century. The empire built to last forever barely survives 50 years. History is not made of certainty, but of fragile choices. In this alternate world, the Reich triumphed, the Allies fell, and freedom became a memory. But even in the darkest timelines, resistance endures. Empires rise and fall, yet the human spirit always finds a way to break the chains of tyranny. The story of what if Nazi Germany had won World War II reminds us that history could have turned differently, and that the world we live in today was not inevitable, but earned through unimaginable sacrifice. The past warns us, the present shapes us, and the future is ours to defend. If you enjoyed this exploration of alternate history, don't forget to subscribe and watch our next scenario. What if the Soviet Union never collapsed? Because sometimes, imagining what could have been teaches us to cherish what is.